Tonight, ex-tropical cyclone Alfred continues to cause destruction across large areas of Queensland and New South Wales. Hello, I'm Lucy Shannon. This is ABC News. Russia renews its attacks on Ukraine after the US cuts off military intelligence to Kyiv. Labor secures another thumping election victory in Western Australia. And Devils CEO Brendan Gale confident the new AFL team can win over all Tasmanians. Ex-tropical cyclone Alfred may be weakening, but its remnants are wreaking havoc on Queensland, southeast and northern New South Wales. Heavy rainfall is causing flash flooding and triggering dozens of emergency warnings for inundation. These pictures are from Hervey Bay, north of the Sunshine Coast, which received 300 millimetres of rain today. In Brisbane and the Gold Coast, they missed the worst of the storm, but 100-kilometre-an-hour winds overnight toppled more trees and electrical lines. As we go to air, around 300,000 households are still without power. First to our reporters on the ground, beginning tonight's coverage in Brisbane.
Taken off guard, Fraser Coast residents were not expecting this. Locals thought they were outside the firing line. The ferocity of the downpour a surprise.
It was all pretty calm, but we were just watching out for everything with all the news reports, and then all of a sudden, bang, it came out of nowhere, mate.
We were expecting a little bit of rain, but not this much and not this quick.
More than 300 millimetres pelted down, prompting an emergency alert. This woman had to be rescued as floodwaters suddenly rose. She was one of dozens across the region who needed to be evacuated. The raging torrent threatened caravan parks.
We are actually in some trouble.
Whole streets were quickly engulfed and businesses inundated. Workers at Tom O'Neill's shop spent the morning mopping up.
So I looked at the rest of the cameras and then seen everything floating inside and went, oh, this isn't good.
Further south, a second bone-rattling night. The tropical low again pummelling the southeast. North of Brisbane, these Clontarf residents had the fright of their lives, a tree crashing onto their home.
We're in the hallway and heard a loud thud and just had to stay there till we saw it this morning.
They'd spent the evening before sheltering elsewhere, not expecting last night to be worse.
Because the weather looked good yesterday, we moved everything back in the house and ended up, getting caught out.
There is no doubt that it continues to pack a punch.
Gusts of more than 100 kilometres per hour were clocked.
Yeah, I was blowing a gale.
Then pounding rain.
How you doing? All good?
So we're just watching the creek at the back now. It's sort of broken its banks, but we're on sort of going low tide at the moment, so fingers crossed. Across Brisbane, waterways overflowed. Low-lying streets and the cars left there swamped. A spectacle for some.
Right in front of our eyes. It's just going so fast.
Wet roads without traffic lights made driving dangerous. This Brisbane resident says he bought his house knowing it could flood underneath.
We just took a chance. You just got to take a chance sometimes, you know.
Authorities are warning everyone to stay on guard in the short term.
The heavy rainfall will continue and flash flooding is a high risk.
We've not had any loss of life from this weather event, and I'd be really keen to keep it that way.
But the system is expected to ease in coming days.
We have no plans to open the Wivenhoe and Somerset gates at the moment with the rainfall that we can see on the ground at the moment.
Hundreds of thousands remain without power or telecommunications. On the Gold Coast, some have been in the dark for days.
You know, we're on candles, we're on gas, we've been able to cook.
Kids have been doing a lot of painting activities, and we're just trying to be back how we used to be when we were young, without a bit of technology.
Exhausted residents dealing with this disaster for days are being urged to stay vigilant. With the beginning of a new week, some people will be returning to work, with services, schools and businesses up and running where possible. A return to normal life, hopefully not too far off. Kate McKenna, ABC News, Brisbane.
Several towns in northern New South Wales appear to have avoided devastating flooding. Some warnings have been downgraded and an evacuation order has been lifted. But thousands of people are still without power and it could be days before they're reconnected.
For some communities, relief.
It just didn't rain like they thought it would.
A major flood warning for the Wilsons River has been downgraded.
The advice now is to return with caution for Lismore CBD.
But for many areas, the threat is far from over.
I don't want to imply that we're out of the woods yet.
In Dorrigo, tributes flowed for local man Tommy Cook, who drowned in flood waters on Friday afternoon.
It was definitely a larrikin. He was a hard-beaten bloke.
Everyone knows Tom. Here comes Tom again. But everyone knew Tom. Everyone liked Tom.
The 61-year-old was trying to drive across this creek, but was swept away before rescue crews could reach him.
There's not too many people that would have known that creek better than him, and it's a terrible mistake.
Overnight, the SES carried out 6 flood rescues.
Unfortunately, one of those where a family of 2 adults and 6 kids tried to navigate through flooded waters. It absolutely astounds me that this still occurs.
Coraki is still under a major flood warning and access remains cut off.
You can see that the road is half underwater.
Rito Bodenberg runs a cafe across from the Richmond River.
As long as the shop is not underwater, we will go and prepare takeaway meals, our roasty meals, for the community that they have something nice to eat.
Authorities say dirty drinking water is becoming an emerging issue.
Unfortunately, there's 3 areas in our shire where we can't guarantee the safety of our water, so we have had to issue boil water alerts for those.
For families who evacuated in Murwillumbah, board games are keeping morale high.
We just evacuated with all of our stuff. We've got other electronics over there, but this is just all of our important documents.
Sarah Robertson's family has been in this motel room for 5 days.
We're just exhausted. You know, this is every flood season. You can't relax. Just across the Tweed River over here is South Murwillumbah, and you can see why a lot of people would want to live here. It is normally an idyllic location. The obvious issue is that when that water rises, those homes are the first to be affected.
Nearly 15,000 homes are still without power.
I would expect that some customers will be looking at 5 to 10 days before supply is restored.
There's a lot of people who can't connect with their families, so they don't know that they're safe.
While the immediate danger has passed, there's now fears some could remain cut off for days. Victoria Pengilly, ABC News.
12 members of the Defence Force remain in New South Wales hospitals tonight after 2 military vehicles rolled. The soldiers had been in Lismore helping communities affected by ex-tropical cyclone Alfred. Police are now investigating what led to the incident.
On a tough day for some of their military mates, men and women in uniform file into Lismore Base Hospital, where members of their team were taken after a major crash.
In my 32 years of policing, it's the largest accident scene that I've been to.
32 soldiers were travelling in 2 army trucks along a road in Tregeagle, outside Lismore, when both of the vehicles rolled.
It was a very hectic scene when we arrived. We had patients of varying injuries up and down the roadway, and certainly still had 4 persons trapped.
All on board were taken to hospital and a mass emergency was declared. The troops from Queensland's 7th Brigade were in the Northern Rivers helping communities clear up after ex-tropical cyclone Alfred.
This team of 32 had been engaged in route clearance work and were in transit from one task to another when the incident occurred.
These men and women are heroes who are on their way to help people in need. They were doing this at a time when some of their own families were bearing the brunt of Alfred.
The New South Wales Premier wants to make sure the support keeps coming.
I don't want it to dampen the community's need, the state's need, the public's need for help every now and then.
This afternoon, a fresh round of help arrived in Lismore as more soldiers from Queensland were given a tour by police, with conditions still treacherous in parts of the town. Visiting paramedics have also been playing a crucial role in northern New South Wales, plucking patients from flood zones with their world-first fleet of ambulances designed to tackle rivers.
Our HARA vehicle is able to operate safely in a floodwater depth of 1.2 metres, and there have been multiple crossings at that depth through this deployment.
The Prime Minister has praised the efforts of those involved in helping flood-affected communities. Anthony Albanese and the Defence Minister Richard Marles today visited troops in Queensland. It's also expected they'll come here to northern New South Wales in the days ahead. Fiona Willan, ABC News, Lismore.
Let's get the latest from Brisbane and northern New South Wales. First to Will Murray in Brisbane. Will, it's not over yet. What's the situation where you are?
No, it's certainly not over yet, Lucy. We've been waiting for some heavy, intense rainfall for a while now, but it's certainly come. In the CBD, we've had about 100 millimetres of rain yesterday, and already today we've had well over that, and it's still raining heavily behind me. Now, some low-lying parts of the city have already seen some flooding, areas around Nunda in the north, Carindale, Oxley, places like East Brisbane and Stones Corner. And we're just hearing that severe storms are currently hitting Logan and the Gold Coast. Now, thankfully, to this point, the flooding hasn't been as severe as during previous events, but it is still raining. Now, so far, the SES has had around 1,000 call-outs for assistance, mostly for damaged property and fallen trees. 100 extra police have been deployed across the region, and around 850 extra fire and emergency services personnel. Now, looking ahead, the rain is supposed to ease tonight, although we may get another burst early tomorrow morning. But thankfully, that's not expected to be anywhere near as sustained as what we've seen in the past 24 hours. So hopefully the power can be restored and the clean-up can begin. But Lucy, this is still very much an anxious time for a lot of people because while it is still raining, the rivers and the creeks are still rising.
And let's bring in reporter Ethan Ricks now, who's in Grafton in northern New South Wales. Ethan, what's happening where you are?
Well, Lucy, the flow-on effect of ex-tropical cyclone Alfred is now starting to be felt in these low-lying areas of the state where authorities have shifted their attention. The Clarence River here in Grafton has risen dramatically over the last 24 hours, from below 2 metres yesterday to above 5.5 metres today. And the Bureau of Meteorology is predicting that there is still more to come. That makes this a major flooding event, and that has certainly attracted a lot of attention from the locals.
We'll just watch and act as we hear the warnings, but as far as I'm aware, the warnings are saying that it's not going to go over the levee, so it should be all right.
I'm not from here. I've only been here for a year, and this is the first time. It's unbelievable.
Pretty bad. I reckon it's one of the worst ones. But yeah, we still got heaps more rain coming.
This area is subject to a number of emergency warnings, and to make people aware of that, the SES in this area say they have knocked on more than 400 doors today. Lucy?
Ethan Ricks and Will Murray, thank you. To the rest of the day's news, and Ukraine has come under renewed attack from Russia after the US cut off military intelligence to the country. The latest strikes killing 25 and wounding dozens more. It comes as President Zelensky is set to continue talks with the United States on ending the war.
Russian missiles strike the Ukrainian town of Dobropilya, killing 11. The attack coming just 24 hours after Ukrainian energy plants were hit by dozens of missiles and drones.
The second strike occurred when the rescuers were on site. 50 people were wounded. The youngest is a 10-year-old girl.
It's the latest in a wave of fresh strikes from Moscow after the US stopped sharing military intelligence with Zelensky's forces. Blind without the Americans, Ukraine is struggling to defend itself.
Literally every day, Russia proves with its cruelty that nothing has changed for them in Moscow.
In Kyiv, dozens gathered near the US embassy protesting Donald Trump's decision.
The long-term consequences will affect everyone, and them equally. We Ukrainians need the support of the American people.
Tomorrow, President Zelensky will travel to Saudi Arabia to continue discussions with the Americans. Then, on Tuesday, European leaders will meet again to work out possible ways forward for peace. The Prime Minister says Australia will attend. The invitation coming after he appeared open to potentially sending Australian troops to the region.
Thanks for all your service. As I've said, there is no mission at this point in time. You can't have a peacekeeping mission without having peace. We have been invited to this meeting on Tuesday and we will participate.
But whatever the outcome, Europe and Ukraine will still need the military might of America. Michelle Rimmer, ABC News.
More than 1,000 people have been killed in Syria in clashes between government forces and loyalists to ousted dictator Bashar al-Assad. Syria's new government is fighting an insurgency by ethnic minority Alawites who support the exiled president. The fighting is centred on the country's coastal region, which is Alawite heartland. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says 745 of the 1,000 people killed in the last 2 days were civilians, mostly shot at close range. Al-Assad was toppled in December last year after a lightning campaign by rebel groups led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS. A $53 billion plan for the reconstruction of Gaza has been rejected by Israel and the United States. The proposal, drawn up by Egypt and backed by Arab countries, would avoid displacing Palestinians from the territory. The plan also had the support of leading European nations. Its rejection comes as negotiations continue over the future of a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. More than 45,000 Palestinians are believed to have been killed in Gaza since October 7, and nearly 70% of all structures in the territory have been damaged or destroyed. Western Australia's Labor Party has recorded yet another thumping election victory. An 18% swing against the party did little to diminish their huge parliamentary majority, with the WA Liberals left soul-searching after a third consecutive electoral drubbing.
Stepping out of Mark McGowan's shadow and into Labor's third term, one the Premier says will be defined by local manufacturing.
Western Australia has voted for a future which is made in WA.
After a history-making landslide in 2021, the party was bracing for a loss of at least 12 seats, but so far has lost just 4. Despite an 18% swing against Labor, it was not a good night for the Liberals.
It's been a dramatic result for the Labor Party in Perth. They're doing much better than expected.
Liberal leader Libby Mettam leaving the door open for a change of leadership.
And it is important that whoever the leader is going forward is the leader going into the 2029 election.
Prominent media personality Basil Zemplis will be in the mix after a closer-than-expected win in the seat of Churchlands.
The continual rebuild of the Liberal Party now takes its next step, with more numbers, more talent.
With another election imminent, both federal leaders are watching WA closely.
To put it in context, this is the second largest victory in history in Western Australia. That is quite remarkable for a government seeking a third term in office.
Well, look, it's a mixed result in WA. In a seat like Collie, where we've announced the nuclear reactor, there was a 20% swing to the Liberals in that seat.
A key takeout from the WA result is that both major parties continue to bleed votes to independents and minor parties, a trend both federal leaders will need to address in the coming weeks. Rhiannon Shine, ABC News.
The Tasmanian government plans to allow new small businesses to operate for 12 months with only one permit. Premier Jeremy Rockliff announced the creation of the Small Business Startup Permit in Launceston today. Business Tasmania would carry out an initial assessment of the new businesses before granting the permit, which would allow it to start operating immediately. The business would need to obtain other required state and local government permits within 12 months, and federal licences would still be required.
There are many areas of which are complicated
having chairs and tables on the street, for example, signage and other matters, of course, that are complex and in many respects are necessary in terms of that complexity starting up. And what we're doing is getting rid of that.
We know there is too much red tape, and that's why we've been announcing policies like our nighttime economy policy to make it easier for hospitality organisations to start up.
The Tasmania Devils inaugural CEO, Brendan Gale, has the challenging task of developing Tasmania's first AFL team, while navigating the sometime acrimonious public debate over the planned stadium at Macquarie Point. He sat down with Guy Stainer for Stateline to explain how he plans to steer the path ahead.
Brendan Gale, thanks for your time. 2/3 of people polled in the north of the state are opposed to a new stadium in Hobart. Why should Northerners support a new stadium in Hobart?
Because the Tasmania Football Club is a team like no other. It represents an entire state, and we will honour that. We will be whole of state, and we'll be playing football in Hobart. We'll be playing football in Launceston. We'll be supporting youth pathways. We'll be supporting youth participation. We already have. We've seen 40% increase in Auskick and the like, and so I think a team that represents an entire state will stimulate the entire football ecosystem, north, south, east, west, and of the state itself, Guy.
Can you understand why so many Tasmanians feel like they're being bullied by the AFL?
On face value, I probably can. It looks that way, but it's actually the opposite. The AFL want the Tasmania Football Club to be competitive, and they want us to be successful. They're actually setting us up for success. So, an elite, fit-for-purpose stadium that people want to go to, that forms a strong part of a business model, is setting us up for success.
Why does the stadium need a roof?
Because football increasingly, and live sport around the world, is getting harder to attract people to live sport, guys. So, you've got to follow fans. And
do you think the games wouldn't sell out without a roof?
I'm not sure, but I think stadiums fatigue. You need to provide the best amenity, the best sightlines, food and beverage, the best environment possible for supporters, for Tasmania locally, interstate, and they'll be supported and they'll be filled, and you'll get the best financial returns. And the stadium's important for us in terms of it's such a strong contributor to the business model, and we want to provide the best environment for our fans.
Do you feel like you've been given a hospital hand pass by the government that you're trying to prosecute the case for a stadium where it's not really your core business? You're trying to set up a team.
I'm actually not, Guy. I mean, at the end of the day, look, let me say this. Stadiums are never easy. They are big and expensive, and national experience would suggest that is the case. What's also true is that when they're built, the dividends are so deep and broad that people, custodians, say we should have done it 10 years earlier. I mean, this is hard, but it's an investment worth making, and it's going to have multiple dividends.
Are we going to have a VFL team next year?
It would be our preference at this stage to get into the VFL as quickly as possible, but there's some key decisions looming within the next 2 or 3 months to be up and ready. We need to satisfy ourselves that we've got the ability to sort of establish and deliver a successful VFL program.
You say you want them up and running basically next year. What are the impediments to doing that?
It's off-field personnel, it's staffing, it's administration, it's coaching.
How conscious are you of the fact that the local competitions would be screaming blue murder if there's not an elite team in place next year?
I think I'm mindful. I am mindful. I think we need to have pathways. We need to have a premium product for our players to develop and grow under great coaching and showcase skills and to continue that pathway. So I think it's really important. But once again, it's about staff administration, it's about coaching, it's about facilities, Guy. It's about training administration. It's for a football-mad state and a football-mad city, facilities are scarce and they're very competitive. So we feel strongly about it. We've got work to do.
Brendan Gale, thanks for talking to Stateline.
My pleasure, Guy.
28 captive-bred orange-bellied parrots have been released into Tasmania's wilderness ahead of what experts hope will be the biggest winter migration in 30 years. The critically endangered parrots breed at Melaleuca in Tasmania's remote southwest and migrate to mainland Australia for winter. Last year, more than 90 birds returned to Melaleuca, and together with 15 captive-bred parrots who joined the wild population in spring, they've produced 105 nestlings, the highest number since monitoring began in 1994. Wildlife experts predict more than 200 birds will migrate north this breeding season. To sport, and Greater Western Sydney have begun their 2025 season with a punishing 52-point win over Collingwood, but the win has come at a cost. Giants ruck Kieran Briggs was taken to hospital and Pies star Nick Dacos limped to the final siren.
After missing out on finals last year, the Pies were raring to go, though Giants Stadium was looking a little worse for wear after a Green Day concert during the week.
And we're underway.
With their key forwards in the stands, the early scoring was left to the Giants' backs.
Flirts with the goal post, but it's there.
Friendly fire saw ruckman Kieran Briggs subbed off before quarter time, and a couple of quick goals to Collingwood.
Magpies needed that big time.
Soon fired up the contest. The Giants' frantic forward work giving them a 23-point advantage at the main break.
But Green's there. Toby with another one.
The Magpies' hopes of turning the game around began to fade with Nick Dacos needing treatment, and the Giants capitalised.
25 metres out, check side, goal!
As Kieran Briggs watched on from his hospital bed. Tim Membry found a reason to celebrate, scoring his first goal in the black and white.
Pretty good off the boot, got it!
But the orange tsunami was too powerful, the Giants streaking away with ease.
O'Halloran to finish the job.
Captain Toby Green made sure his opponents knew they were well and truly beaten. The siren sound finally putting the Pies out of their misery. Craig McRae now with plenty of work to do before Collingwood's first home game next weekend. Erin Marsicovetere, ABC News.
Melbourne United has beaten the Illawarra Hawks in Wollongong in Game 1 of the best-of-5 NBL Championship Series. Matthew Dellavedova top-scored for United with 18 points as his team won 96 points to 88. Sharpshooter Chris Golding was kept to just 4 points in the opening three quarters, but scored 11 in the fourth to put Melbourne in front. Game 2 of the series is at John Cain Arena on Wednesday. To the weather, and tonight's photo taken near Killicranky Bay on Flinders Island was sent in by Robin Arvier. It was a warm and hot day, mostly clear skies about the west and south, some light showers about the north and east. The top temperature was 32 degrees at Bushy Park and Ouse. Interestingly, those two places also had the lowest minimum at 7 degrees. Hobart reached 31 and Launceston 30. Not a lot of rain around yesterday and overnight. The highest rainfall was 2.4 millimetres at Grey, followed by 2.2 at St Patrick's Head. The national satellite sequence shows patchy cloud about the northeast with some high cloud about the west and King Island. Tomorrow's synoptic chart shows a trough and front moving over Tasmania. Another trough extends across the Pilbara through the Northern Territory and into Queensland to connect up with the ex-tropical cyclone Alfred near the Queensland and New South Wales border. Across the country tomorrow, rain and 27 for Brisbane and Sydney, storms in Darwin, sunny and 30 degrees in Perth. Back home, and there'll be showers developing about the north in the morning, extending statewide during the day, possible thunderstorms. 27 for Burnie and Queenstown, 26 for Devonport and 25 for Strawn. 29 in St Helens, 31 for Swansea. Possible showers in Launceston, a low of 15 and a top of 33. Possible showers also in Hobart, most likely in the afternoon and evening, a low of 17 and a top of 29. Sunrise will be at 7 o'clock on the dot. On coastal waters, northeast to northwesterly winds at 10 to 20 knots, turning westerly in the south in the morning and then becoming south to southeasterly throughout and during the afternoon and evening, reaching 20 to 30 knots about the south in the afternoon and northeast and western waters in the evening. There's a strong wind warning for Frederick Henry Bay and Norfolk Bay, Storm Bay, the Channel, Bank Strait and Franklin Sound, east of Flinders Island, the southeast coast and central west coast. There's a heat wave warning for the Furneaux Islands, the northeast and western and northwest coast districts. The outlook for Tuesday, showers clearing. The outlook for Wednesday, showers and possible thunderstorms about the west, extending across the state during the day. And that 7-day outlook shows showers and warm temperatures throughout the week. And that's the news for now. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.